One day away from starting up again, we hope. We have the latest on that situation. Plus, who is the Islanders' most indispensable player? And a little controversy surrounding the new UBS Arena. We'll break it all down for you, all this and more on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. So glad you could join us today, and thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Lots to discuss on today's show. ESPN doing a piece about the most indispensable player on each NHL team. You'll be surprised, perhaps, as to who they picked for the Islanders. We certainly will give our 2 cents about that, and certainly welcome to hear from you as to what you think about it. Also, some controversy surrounding the incoming Nassau County Executive with regards to the UBS Arena. We'll break that down. Islanders, one day away from returning to action. We'll talk a little bit more about that, the taxi squad, and our Islanders birthday of the day, plus a lot more coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. If you've got something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic that you'd like us to talk about on the show, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. And I am also live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So make sure you join us for that. It's always great to interact with fans during games. Let's talk a little bit about the taxi squad. The NHL announcing over the weekend that teams can put up to 6 players on a taxi squad, and we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show, that the Islanders now have 3 players on theirs, and the taxi squads will run, or at least for now, they will be in place through the All-Star break. So the All-Star break would take us right up to roughly where the Olympic break was going to be, and hopefully they won't be necessary after that. But as of now, that is the situation. And if need be, obviously, the NHL Players Association and the league, hopefully, if they need to, would come to an agreement and extend the existence of the taxi squad. And we pretty much can go from there. But I think it's a good thing. It makes sense under these difficult circumstances. The only issue, perhaps, with it is, do you keep the players who are on that taxi squad separated from their teammates? Because if you don't, the way this Omicron variant is so very contagious, just, having another 3, 4, 5 players on your roster, that's all well and good. But if they all are exposed to COVID the same way as the rest of the players on the roster, doesn't necessarily help having just more players on the COVID reserve list. So be interesting to see how NHL teams sort of handle that situation, whether those players will be kept separate, practice separately from their teammates, or whether or not they will be immediately inserted into the lineup. We'll see how that plays out, and it will be interesting to say the taxi squads, for at least, are indeed. While kind of a little irony going on as Nassau County being involved in the whole situation with the and their arena, Bruce Blakeman, who is is the Nassau County Executive. Came in and the incoming Nassau County Executive. But here's what he had to say. He was complaining about the parking at the new UBS Arena. And there was no doubt because the park was supposed to be built for the team. The arena had 100% finished, so there is a little bit of a shortage parking. Everybody had to say, if this was the part of Hess told it, this town board move in and open that arena with that parking garage being open. The real injustice to people, that is the vote for Blakeman. Let's break this down. Think that Blakeman, I understand he's trying to swing in, his constituents or soon-to-be constituents, say they're a man of the people, et cetera, et cetera. Quite honestly, just come on. The town of and Nassau County, screw Islander fans and the Islanders organization over decades. And, the Nassau Coliseum, built in 1972, should have been replaced by, let's say, the mid to late 90s, certainly by the early. And you had so many proposals. The lighthouse project was proposed. You had a vote on a bond to innovate the country. So many different put up. The lighthouse project wouldn't have even cost the taxpayers very much money because Charles was going to finance that himself. Basically, Kate Murray took a kibosh on the lighthouse project. A lot of politically amounted to a waste. The way they did it, too small and didn't upgrade it the way they needed to. So Nassau County Executive, especially when the situation surrounding the very issue where ASAP time to have it ready for this season, the parking garage wasn't quite finished. It's really difficult as a fan to live anything because they had chance after chance after chance to get Nassau Coliseum rated or replaced. They failed the Nassau County and town of Hempstead time and time again. So influence because the county and the town of Hempstead had their chance, and an ironic statement there that given all the things that have gone down around the Islanders and their arena. We have got more to discuss on today's show. We will talk about who the Islanders' most indispensable is. You may be surprised about that. We'll have some quotes from the Islanders as they prepare to play. Hopefully Wednesday, Red Wings, after what would be a 10-game hiatus. And we've got our Islanders' birthday of the day. All of that coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the college bowl season and the pro football playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON, that's one word, to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, some thoughts from the Islanders as they have resumed practice. They're back in the facility. Josh Bailey, for example, had this to say as the Islanders, again, hopefully one day away from resuming play. We're looking forward to playing some games again. It's been tough circumstances. The league is doing the best they can with the hand they've been dealt to this point. So it'll be fun to get back out. Matthew Barzal back at practice the last 2 days. So that is a good thing. He had been in COVID protocol since December 14th, 10 days of isolation. Here's what Barzy had to say. My whole emotion, my whole energy has been sparked being back with the boys. It's tough spending 10 days by yourself, isolated. It's not fun. It's not easy. I'm thrilled to be back with the boys. Barry Trotz, basically speaking about Barzal, who, again, 10 days, he had tested positive for COVID. He said he could feel the after effects the first practice. I think he hit a bit of a wall earlier. When you're off for that length of time, you're going to hit a wall. Today, as in Monday, he was fine. So that's the situation with that. Still waiting to see whether Matt Martin and Robin Salo, they should be able to exit the COVID protocol on December 29th in time to take on the Red Wings. But again, they probably have to test out of it. But the Islanders will still be without Anthony Beauvillier, Zach Parise, Oliver Wahlstrom, and Cal Clutterbuck. Kyle Palmieri still out with a lower body injury. He skated on his own yesterday, and that is good news. And Ryan Pulock also off skating on his own, but still not ready to even practice with the team, let alone return to action. But at least, you know what? There is progress there. ESPN did an article on the most indispensable player on each of the 32 NHL teams. And I think their pick for the Islanders was an interesting one. It was Adam Pellick. Here's what the article said. Given all the injuries and COVID-related problems that the Islanders have dealt with, it's tough to really get a beat on what makes them tick. The one thing we do know is that Pellick's contributions on the blue line are tough to replicate. He has only 4 assists in 22 games, but what he offers in pure defensive weight can't be measured. He is consistently at the top of the heap on Long Island. I'm thinking about this and whether or not I would agree that Adam Pellick should be considered the most indispensable Islander. There are a number of players who you consider right now. Ilya, I don't want to think about where this team might play, and goaltending is of the game of hockey, although tough to say that either Varlamov or Sorokin are indispensable because the Islanders have 2 excellent goaltenders on their roster, and for a short amount of time, or even an extended time if necessary, they could get by with one of them. Do you go with Anders Lee? He's the captain. He provides leadership and goal scoring and that intangible. But at the same time, the Islanders made it all the way to the conference final last year without Anders Lee in the lineup. Now, if they would have had him, would they have beaten the Lightning in the playoffs? I think that's a real possibility. We'll never know for sure, obviously. But Certainly Anders Lee would have to be a candidate. Brock Nelson, team's leading goal scorer, certainly has to be in the conversation, as does the most dynamic offensive player in Matthew Barzal. No other player on this roster is capable of doing. His speed creates room and scoring opportunities both for himself and for his teammates. And that certainly is something to be valued. And maybe because the Islanders don't have enough goal scoring up and down that roster right now, the fact that the Islanders are 31st in the league in goals scored. Now, again, they've only played 26 games. A lot of teams have played 29, 30. But even so, Islanders struggling to score goals. So maybe that makes Barzal a definite candidate. What do you think? What do you, our listeners, think about who the Islanders' most indispensable player is? I'll throw out one other name, J.G. Pajot. Kills penalties, second power play unit, wins a lot of faceoffs, good in his own zone, 20-plus goal scorer the last couple of years, or at least on pace for that, had there been a full season. Maybe no player epitomizes the two-way hockey that the Islanders want to play more than J.G. Pajot. And it's not a coincidence in my mind that the Islanders went to back-to-back conference final in the playoffs after they acquired J.G. Pajot. So those are 5 or 6 candidates that I'm kicking around right now in my head. I, don't know if I agree with the article and their choice. But again, what do you think? You could hit us up on Twitter at Locked On Isles, or you could email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. Love to hear what your opinion is. Who is the most indispensable member of the New York Islanders as of right now? The one player that if he was missing from the lineup, this team's outlook for the season would be very, very different. That, the one player they cannot afford to be without. So not an easy question. This is not a star team. There is no Sidney Crosby or Alexander Ovechkin or, Connor McDavid. There is no one guy who you just sit there and say, oh, head and shoulders, he is the guy. So it's an interesting question. And the Islanders may be one of the more difficult teams to put your finger on who the most indispensable Islander is. I'm not going to let you cop out and say Barry Trotz. That's not an option, even though I think he is extremely valuable to this team. But we'll see. And hopefully we will have a game tomorrow against Detroit and then Thursday against Buffalo. Both of those games, as of right now, scheduled for 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And hopefully we'll be back tomorrow with a full preview of that game against Detroit. Fingers crossed that the league, which continues to cancel games here and there, won't need to continue to cancel games. But obviously the health of the players has to be paramount and first in everybody's mind. When we get back, we will discuss our Islanders' birthday of the day and a whole lot more. All that still to come on the Locked On Islanders podcast. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And yesterday, Monday, was the 47th birthday of former Islanders winger Jay Pandolfo. Originally drafted in the second round by the New Jersey Devils in the 1993 NHL entry draft. Spent 4 good seasons at Boston University, including a 38-goal season his senior year in 40 games. That is an unbelievable amount of productivity in college hockey. Made his NHL debut in 1996-97 with the Devils and stayed with the Devils through the season. In 2011-2012, he joined 62 games for them, had 1 goal, 3 points, and 8 penalty minutes. Finished his NHL career in 2012-2013. Pandolfo, more of a two-way, kind of a center, not the most offensively gifted kind of a player, never had more than 14 goals in an NHL season, but, was a steady contributor defense and is more than capable of getting the job done. Has gone on to be assistant coach with the Boston Bruins from 2016-2017 until last season. Career 899 NHL games, 100 goals even, 226 points, and 164 penalty minutes, 131 playoff games, 11 goals, 33 points, and 12 penalty minutes for Pandolfo in playoffs. We're going to go back to better games as an Islander. We take you back to November 17th, 2011 at the Nassau Coliseum. Almost 10,000 fans on hand as the Montreal Canadiens come to visit. Peter Budaj is the goalie for the Habs. Evgeny Nabokov in net for the New York Islanders. He started the game but didn't last very long and was replaced by Rick DiPietro. Scoreless first period in this one, but in the second period, the Islanders get on the board early. P.A. Parento, his third, an unassisted goal. 1-0 Islanders, just 41 seconds into that second period. The Islanders add to their lead. Our Islanders' birthday of the day, Jay Pandolfo, his first of the year, assist to Josh Bailey and Matt Martin at 3:01. For Pandolfo, his first goal as an Islander, his 100th career NHL goal, and his final NHL goal, although nobody knew it at the time. Islanders increased their lead midway through the second period. Mark Streit got his second. Matt Martin with the assist at 9:08. And it's 3-0 Isles. But the Canadiens bounce back. Max Pacioretty, his ninth from Lars Eller at 14:52. And then Eric Cole, his fifth from Rafael Diaz and Thomas Plekanec at 17:38. And that Islander lead has suddenly been cut to 3-2. But the Islanders answer back. Matt Molson, his sixth from John Tavares and Rick DiPietro at 18:15. Islanders go up 4-2 after 2 periods. In the third, Islanders get into some penalty trouble. Steve Stais called for boarding. Brian Giunta pots his fifth. Mike Camilleri, Thomas Plekanec with the assist at 13:42. But that was as close as the Canadiens would get. Islanders win it by a score of 4-3. Rick DiPietro, 24 saves to earn the win in this one. He did give up all 3 goals. But for our Islanders' birthday of the day, Jay Pandolfo, 1 goal, a +2 in this game, 3 shots on goal, and again, his 100th career NHL goal. So we wish all the best to Jay Pandolfo. 40 is our Islanders' birthday. I tell you, I am really hoping that we are getting back to hockey. It would just great to be back on schedule. And, the Islanders had time to group, time to really make things work for this team. And hopefully no more excuses as the Islanders resume play and need to start stringing some wins together to pick up points. Thanks for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. That does it for this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We will be back tomorrow for a preview of tomorrow's game against the Detroit. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.